Hello and welcome to Helicopter Training Videos. In this video we're going to talk about the recent updates to the Robinson Helicopter Safety Notices 11, 32 and 41. Robinson's safety notices are incredibly valuable safety resources. They're based on real accidents and incidents with one clear goal: improving safety through education and awareness and reducing the overall accident rate. You'll find them in section 10 labeled Safety Tips and Notices of the Pilot Operating Handbook, or POH, for the R22, R44 and R66. I always recommend that students or pilots new to Robinson aircraft read these periodically throughout their training and after their training is complete. You'll keep on learning from them as your experience and understanding grows. In fact, in my college class, I assign a midterm paper and short presentation based on a safety notice. I let the students pick, and honestly, every term I learn something new from what the students bring to the table. Part of their assignment is to look into the history of their chosen safety notice, why it was written, why it was updated. Robinson doesn't just update these randomly or on a set schedule. They do so when there's new technology or new understanding or a new accident or incident that we can all learn from to help us become safer pilots. And that's exactly the case with these three updates. Safety Notice 11, which is low-G pushovers, 32, which is high winds or turbulence, and 41, which is pilot distractions. These updates were influenced by advances in aircraft design and technology, along with lessons learned from recent accidents, especially a tragic R66 accident that happened in Australia in October of 23. That accident was investigated by the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, ATSB, which is Australia's equivalent of our NTSB. Their report includes powerful graphics and photos and a striking 3D reconstruction using 3D animation combined with actual cockpit footage from the accident. We will reference that accident throughout this video, and I highly recommend you watch the full video. The link to the video and the full report is in the description. Let's start with Safety Notice 11, which is titled Low-G Pushovers Extremely Dangerous. If you're familiar with a Robinson rotor head or any other teetering rotor head like the Bell 206 or the Bell 505, you already know that a low-G condition can lead to mast bumping. If you're not aware of that, or you want a quick refresher, check out Helicopter Training Videos, video and articles on SFAR 73. The links again will be in the description there. The last update to Safety Notice 11 was published in 2000, 25 years ago. So what's changed? One big thing: the new horizontal stabilizer. The old stabilizer was mounted only on the right side of the tail. Computer modeling showed that it contributed significantly to a right roll during low-G events, because of the downforce it creates on that right-hand side. Robinson has now developed a new symmetrical stabilizer that dramatically reduces the roll rate in low-G situations. Here's the key difference. With the new stabilizer, a small roll can still occur, but because it's symmetrical, that roll could be to the right or to the left. That's a major change in how we think about low-G roll. Pilots traditionally are trained to associate the feeling of light in the seat and a right roll with the potential of dangerous low-G leading into mast bumping. Now, with the new stabilizer, any roll should be less pronounced, but you need to remember it could go in either direction. In addition to covering the stabilizer, the updated Safety Notice 11 also improves the explanation of low-G roll dynamics. The new wording is easier to follow and reflects the newer understanding of the situation from that computer modeling. It no longer lists the tail rotor thrust as a cause, since testing showed that the asymmetrical horizontal stabilizer was the main contributor. It explains how a reduced main rotor thrust limits attitude control and how helicopters are less stable in the roll axis, which can lead to an uncommanded right roll. That reduced control effectiveness can cause a pilot to make an overly large control input, which is increasing the risk of mast bumping or main rotor contact with the fuselage or tail. It also specifically notes that higher airspeeds and lighter weights will increase roll severity. This makes sense for a few reasons. First of all, the faster you go, the more aerodynamic downforce is generated on the asymmetric stabilizer, which increases the rolling moment and the rate of deviation. Secondly, the lighter weight means that there's less inertia to resist changes in attitude, so a helicopter will accelerate more quickly into any roll or pitch deviation. Also, the faster you go, the more sensitive the cyclic input becomes. 1 inch of left cyclic at 30 knots will have much less effect on the rotor disc than the same 1 inch input at 90 knots. Increased relative wind and more horizontal airflow creates more aerodynamic force on the blades for the same change in blade pitch, which can lead to overcontrolling and mast bumping. This is part of the reason why we slow down to 60 to 70 knots in turbulence, and more on that later. And lastly, although the asymmetrical horizontal stabilizer was shown to be the main cause of rapid right roll, the tail rotor thrust acting above the center of gravity in a nose-low, high-tail attitude typical of high-speed flight may still add to the problem. There was also slightly different recovery guidance to account for the new symmetrical stabilizer. Previously, the safety notice said to stop the right roll. The updated version now says to stop any roll and to avoid any large cyclic inputs in any direction. One other change in Safety Notice 11 is that Robinson removed the language explaining why low G encountered during a rapid entry into an auto rotation, whether from an actual power failure or simulation of one in training, how that is not a problem. Lowering the collective rapidly to maintain rotor RPM is still part of the expected initial pilot response to power failure, so I don't think Robinson is now suggesting that this is a bad idea by removing the text. My guess is that the sentence was removed because it also referred to tail rotor thrust, and the new computer modeling has shown that that is not the main concern. So to stay consistent with the updated understanding, they may have simply deleted it. I've asked Robinson for clarification, but I haven't got a response yet. Safety Notice 11 also clarifies that pushovers aren't the only way to get into low G. Turbulence can do that too, which leads us right into Safety Notice 32. Safety Notice 32 was last updated in 2020. The updated version that just came out in July of 2025 still starts with the same general warning about loss of control and low G in turbulence, but now it adds some very specific examples of conditions that can lead to it. That includes convective activity, mountain waves and strong inversions, and strong surface winds over varied terrain with stronger winds and steeper terrain creating more severe turbulence. And it also advises against flight over terrain where turbulence is likely to be severe. The R66 crash we mentioned earlier is a perfect case study. Relatively high winds interacting with steep terrain caused intense turbulence, and unfortunately the outcome was tragic. There were other contributing factors in the accident which we'll look at later. The updated Safety Notice 32 also changes the triggers for when to use the recommended procedures for flight in turbulence. The previous version suggested using turbulence flight procedures when significant turbulence is encountered, and defined significant as being dependent on pilot experience and comfort level. That subjective definition can feed into macho or invulnerability as far as hazardous attitudes go, and the pilots may try to negotiate or rationalize their risk based on their ego or maybe overconfidence or misjudged ability. The updated version of Safety Notice 32 uses the more objective trigger as moderate or greater turbulence, either encountered or expected, like when in strong winds approaching the lee side of terrain that might create mechanical turbulence, such as ridges, large buildings, or even tree lines, or when flying in an area with an air met for turbulence or low-level wind shear. The moderate turbulence definition is already used as a limitation in the R22 and is defined as, in part, changes in altitude and/or attitude, variations in indicated airspeed, and occupants feel definite strains against seatbelts. It is also similarly defined in the AIM and the Aviation Weather Book. I think that definition would have been useful to have in the Safety Notice too, but either way, it is certainly more objective than the original significant turbulence definition. The previous version of the Safety Notice had no mention of autopilot technology, which is being used on more and more helicopters. So this update adds a reminder to disengage upper modes such as alt, vertical speed, indicated speed, heading, and nav. I don't fly with an autopilot, but I believe that would typically leave just the Stability Augmentation System or SAS mode for the R44 and R66, which would attempt to dampen out pitch and roll changes with small corrections. Along with unchanged recommendations such as flying 60 to 70, tightening the seatbelt, bracing your arm on your thigh, and possibly using light cyclic friction, the updated version of the Safety Notice also reflects the new updated low G recovery technique verbiage mentioned in Safety Notice 11, so it's now using the term any roll deviations instead of right roll. The notice ends with a proactive risk management reminder: do not fly if extreme conditions are anticipated, and it points to the updated Safety Notice 11 for more details on low G. Safety Notice 41 covers pilot distractions, and has added some new examples to keep in mind during flight, such as eating, drinking, and unexpected events, such as bird strikes or unsecured objects moving in the cockpit. Again, the October 2023 R66 accident looks to have been an influence here. In that accident, the pilot had autopilot engaged, flying with both hands off the controls, eating a bowl of food on his lap, with his right hand not easily accessible to the cyclic if needed. When the turbulence hit, he tried to control the cyclic with his left hand and was unfortunately unable to perform the gentle aft or to lower the collective to slow down. The aircraft then rolled upside down, and that led to an in-flight breakup. This safety notice has a lot of new content, including a reminder to pilots to avoid falling prey to complacency while using an autopilot. Autopilot never frees a pilot from the responsibility to closely monitor and control the aircraft. The update provides a list of guidelines, including keeping hands available to take the controls, maintaining situational awareness, and mental engagement throughout the flight with continual outside visual scanning and monitoring the aircraft instruments. Remember, you're still flying a helicopter, you're not relaxing in the back of an Uber. The safety notice also draws a comparison to illegal distracted driving and how that's similar to impaired driving. And honestly, I'd argue it's worse. Helicopters and aviation in general is far less forgiving than driving a vehicle. So here's a quick summary of the main changes and the new takeaways to keep in mind. Safety Notice 11. Updated explanation of roll dynamics and instability. The reminder to fly slower, 60 to 70 in turbulent conditions, especially when lightly loaded. The new stabilizer means less severe roll, but now it could be right or left. Avoid any large control inputs in any direction. Gently add aft cyclic first to reload the rotor. This changes how we teach low G recognition recovery. It used to be watch out for the right roll. Now it depends on the stabilizer that's installed on the aircraft. A better general mindset might be, if you feel light in your seat, think general aft cyclic and slow down. And that applies whether the roll is left, right, or even if there's no noticeable roll at all. Then if possible, avoid the cause of low G, which brings us on to Safety Notice 32. Safety Notice 32 now lists conditions associated with turbulence, including convective activity, strong surface winds over terrain of varying elevation, mountain waves, and strong inversions. Additions to the turbulent flight procedures are disengage autopilot upper modes and avoid flying over terrain that might cause severe turbulence. Also added was the updated low G recovery verbiage with the gentle aft cyclic to reload before correcting any roll deviations, and to not fly if extreme conditions are anticipated. As a pilot of a light helicopter, you'd hope that that would fall into the bracket of common sense, but hey, sometimes it helps to see such things in writing. This safety notice in particular applies to student pilots on solo cross countries. You've got a relatively inexperienced pilot, significantly lighter without the instructor on board, which means they can fly faster, easily 90 knots or more, and they may not recognize thermal or mechanical turbulence until they're already in it. So remind your student, or remind yourself if you are a student, about this particular safety notice before you go solo. And remember, slow down to 60-70 knots and remember the low G recovery drill. And if possible, avoid the cause of the low G by flying away from whatever's causing that turbulence. That could include mechanical turbulence from ridges or large buildings or even tree lines in strong winds. Most importantly, think ahead and predict where that turbulent-induced low G might occur and adjust your flight path or speed to minimize or avoid it. Safety Notice 41 warns against distractions such as eating and unexpected events, compares flying distracted to driving impaired, reinforces the risk of autopilot complacency and the importance of staying mentally engaged, looking outside, monitoring the aircraft, and maintaining good situational awareness. Reminds pilots that using autopilot, they should always be ready to take the controls. I've flown solo long cross countries and definitely tried to eat while en route, realizing that it takes two hands, and gave up, and thankfully nothing unexpected happened, but I can absolutely see how using autopilot could tempt someone into thinking it's safe enough, and that R66 accident was a sobering reminder of where your priorities need to be at all times during flight. Robinson continues to innovate and update, not just with hardware such as the new stabilizer and the safety notice updates, but also by expanding training and education outreach through their new instructor standardization course and their post-maintenance pilot courses. Additionally, they're planning to put out some standardization documents for instructors and students and pilots of Robinson products. You can also subscribe to Robinson to get safety notices and other updates by email or download free PDFs directly from their website. And make sure your POH is up to date and current. And when you get those updates, take this as a reminder to flip through your POH. When was the last time you reviewed those safety notices, or other parts of the POH for that matter? Maybe keep a copy of the POH on your desk or on your nightstand as a visual reminder to stay sharp, because in aviation, we all know knowledge is safety. If you want more helicopter training videos, check out our helicopter ground school series or the helicopter flight maneuver series. Or perhaps you want to follow along with a student from day one all the way through to the check ride with our full flight lesson series. And if you haven't already, please click subscribe to get all the latest videos and help promote the channel. And finally, for more information on helicopter training videos, including articles, resources, quizzes and more, and learn how to support this volunteer project, check out our website, helicoptertrainingvideos.com. Thanks for watching.